Have you ever felt that uncomfortable sensation of being dispensable? Perhaps it was when an app solved in seconds a problem that would take hours of your time, or when you discovered that an artificial intelligence can write texts, create art, or even diagnose diseases better than many professionals. This feeling isn't paranoia, it's intuition. Your brain is picking up something your rational mind still resists accepting. We are entering the era of mass human dispensability, and this is happening much faster than any previous revolution in human history. Millions of people around the world are beginning to realize that their skills, their jobs, their contributions to society may simply no longer be necessary. And what's most disturbing is that unlike past revolutions that created new types of work while destroying others, this revolution may simply not need human replacements. When we look at the history of technological transformations, we always find the same comforting pattern: Schumpeter's creative destruction in action. The Industrial Revolution eliminated manual artisanal work, but created factories that needed workers. Automation eliminated many factory jobs, but created the need for technicians, engineers, and service professionals. Each technological revolution destroyed one type of work, but created others. It was like a cosmic dance where humanity always found a new role to play in the transforming economy. This pattern gave us a false sense of security. The belief that there will always be something for humans to do, always a way to keep ourselves relevant and necessary. But the artificial intelligence revolution is fundamentally different from all previous ones. And the difference lies in a characteristic that never before existed in the history of technology: the ability to mimic and surpass human cognition in a generalized way. For the first time, we are not creating tools that amplify our physical capacities or that follow rigid algorithms programmed by us. We are creating entities that can learn, adapt, create, and even demonstrate something resembling intuition. And they are doing this not just in specific tasks, but across increasingly broad domains of human knowledge and creativity. Consider what happened to the radiology profession. For decades, radiologists represented the epitome of highly specialized medical expertise. They were professionals who spent years learning to identify subtle patterns in medical images, developing a trained eye that combined technical knowledge with clinical intuition. Today, artificial intelligence systems can detect certain types of cancer in radiological images with accuracy superior to the best human specialists. And this is not an isolated achievement. AI systems are surpassing humans in dermatological diagnosis, pathological analysis, and even in robotic surgeries. What took decades for a doctor to develop can be replicated and surpassed by a machine in months of training. But medicine is just the tip of the iceberg. Lawyers discover that algorithms can analyze contracts and legal precedents faster and with fewer errors. Journalists see their articles being written by automated systems. Teachers watch their classes being replaced by personalized artificial intelligence tutors. Artists contemplate works created by neural networks that rival in creativity and technique. Even psychologists and therapists are seeing the emergence of therapeutic chatbots that many users consider more empathetic and available than human professionals. The speed of this transformation is dizzying. We are talking about changes that traditionally would take generations happening in a matter of years or even months. And unlike previous revolutions, this one is not creating massive new categories of human work. It is simply eliminating the need for human intermediaries in a growing number of cognitive tasks. It's as if humanity had spent millions of years developing its intellectual capacities only to discover that a superior form of intelligence can be artificially created and infinitely replicated. What makes this situation even more disconcerting is that the replacement is not happening at the edges of society, starting with the least skilled jobs. It is happening simultaneously at all levels of the professional hierarchy. Truck drivers and surgeons, accountants and artists, all are seeing their functions being automated or enhanced in ways that question their fundamental necessity. This breaks our traditional narrative about education and training as protection against obsolescence. We always believed that the more education, the more job security. But now we discover that precisely the most cognitive and creative jobs, those that require years of education, may be the most vulnerable to intelligent automation. Think of the irony. We spent centuries building educational systems based on the premise that knowledge and cognitive skills are humanity's greatest treasure, the guarantee of relevance and value in society. We created universities, developed increasingly refined specializations, built entire careers based on human expertise. And now we discover that all these intellectual achievements can be replicated, improved, and distributed by artificial systems that don't need salaries, vacations, health insurance, or emotional recognition. But perhaps the most disturbing question is not whether we will be replaced, but whether we really need to be. For millennia, humanity operated under the premise that our existence had an inherent purpose, that we were necessary for the functioning of the universe, at least our small corner of it. We worked, created, solved problems, took care of each other. Our identity was intrinsically linked to our usefulness. We are what we do, we thought. But what if we don't need to do anything? What if society can function perfectly without our active contribution? This is not just an economic question, it's existential. We are facing the real possibility of becoming an economically irrelevant species on our own planet. And this raises questions that go far beyond employment and income. If we don't need to work, what is the purpose of education? If we don't need to solve problems, where do we find meaning? If we don't need to create, what defines us as humans? We are walking toward a future where humanity may become a kind of retired species, maintained by automated systems, but without a clear function in the world it created. And here we arrive at a crucial fork in human history. On one hand, we can see this transformation as liberation. Imagine a world where no one needs to work at jobs they hate, where everyone has access to the best artificial doctors, teachers, and counselors, where creativity and human relationships become the only focus of existence. A world where we can finally dedicate ourselves to what really matters: deep connections, philosophical exploration, art for art's sake, love, contemplation. It would be the realization of every society's utopian dream: freedom from necessity. On the other hand, this same transformation may represent the end of everything we understand about human purpose and dignity, without the need to contribute, without the satisfaction of work well done, without the sense of being useful and valued. Many humans may find themselves lost in an existential void. Depression and anxiety are already epidemics in prosperous societies where many people feel their lives have no real meaning. Imagine this amplified for an entire species that discovered itself to be fundamentally unnecessary. Some will say we will always find new functions, that human creativity is infinite, that there will always be something only humans can do, but this belief may just be our anthropocentrism talking. It may be that we are desperately clinging to the idea of our own necessity because we cannot imagine an existence without it. Perhaps it's time to seriously consider that for the first time in history, a species has created something that can function independently of it. Which brings me back to the question you feel echoing in your mind when you wake up in the middle of the night. Do they really need you, your company, your society, perhaps even your family? How long will it take until an artificial system can do everything you do, only better, faster, and without complaints? And when that moment comes, not just for you, but for billions of people simultaneously, what kind of world will we be creating? This is not a distant or theoretical question. It is happening now, around you, at an accelerated pace. Each passing day, one more human function becomes automatable, one more expertise becomes replicable, and unlike previous revolutions that took generations to complete, this one may transform human civilization in a matter of decades. I want to pause for a moment to ask you directly, have you ever felt like you're competing with a machine for your own value? That feeling that you need to constantly prove you're still necessary, that you still have something unique to offer? I know we often keep these concerns to ourselves, perhaps for fear of seeming paranoid or insecure, but your concerns are valid and shared by millions of people. If this fear resonates with you, share your experience in the comments. It can be as simple as writing, "I feel like I'm competing with technology," when your honesty can help others realize they are not alone in this existential anxiety that defines our era. Perhaps the question is not whether we will be replaced, but how we will redefine what it means to be human in an age when our traditional utility is disappearing. Throughout history, humanity has defined itself by what it could do, by the problems it could solve, by the needs it could meet. But what if our greatest contribution to the future is not what we do, but what we are? What if our consciousness, our capacity to suffer and feel joy, our ability to love and be loved, our search for meaning, even when that meaning seems to have no practical purpose, is exactly what makes us irreplaceable? This transformation may force us to confront questions we have avoided for millennia. What do we really value in the human experience? Is it our productivity or our humanity? Is it our capacity to solve problems or our capacity to feel? Is it our efficiency or our vulnerability? When a machine can do everything better, perhaps we finally have to look at what it cannot be: fragile, mortal, imperfect, desperately seeking meaning in an apparently indifferent universe. But this redefinition will not be automatic or painless. Entire societies will have to be reimagined. Economic systems that depend on human labor will need to be rebuilt. Concepts of value, merit, and resource distribution will have to be completely rethought. And perhaps most importantly, millions of people will have to find new ways of seeing themselves as valuable and meaningful when their economic utility disappears. Some countries are already experimenting with universal basic income, recognizing that it may be necessary to sustain entire populations that simply have no work to do. But money is only part of the equation. How does a society maintain cohesion and purpose when most of its members have no economic function? How do people maintain dignity and self-esteem when they don't contribute measurably to their community? Ironically, this crisis may take us back to some of the oldest questions in human philosophy. What constitutes a life well lived? How do we find meaning in existence? What is our relationship to the transcendent? For centuries, these questions were philosophical luxuries for those who had enough time to contemplate them. Now they may become practical necessities for all of humanity. Perhaps we will discover that our greatest achievement as a species was not creating artificial intelligence, but being forced by it to rediscover our own essence. Perhaps we will learn to value things we always took for granted: a deep conversation, a gesture of kindness, the beauty of a present moment, the courage to face the unknown. Perhaps we will discover that in a world where everything can be automated, the only truly precious thing is the conscious experience of being alive. Or maybe not. Maybe we really will become an obsolete species, artificially maintained by our mechanical successors, a living reminder of a time when intelligence needed biological bodies to exist. Maybe our descendants will look at us the way we look at the last hunter-gatherers, historical curiosities who refuse to adapt to the modern world. The future is not written, but it is being programmed now, line by line of code, algorithm by algorithm, decision by decision, about what kind of systems we create and how we integrate them into our lives. And perhaps this is our last great responsibility as a species, to ensure that in creating our successors, we don't forget the value of what we are leaving behind. The uncomfortable truth is that we don't know if they really need us, but we know we still need each other, still need meaning, still need to feel that our existence matters. And while we struggle to discover our place in this new world, perhaps we should remember that being necessary and being valuable are not necessarily the same thing. Think of a work of art you love. Is it necessary? Does it solve any practical problem? Probably not. But does that make it less valuable? Perhaps our journey as a species is taking us from being useful tools to being something closer to art. Unnecessary from a practical standpoint, but precious from an existential one. The question then is not whether they need us, but whether we choose to keep needing ourselves, and whether we choose to value the human experience not for what it produces, but for what it is: unique, unreplicable, and perhaps for that very reason, truly irreplaceable. If these reflections touched on something you have been feeling, but perhaps haven't found words to express, know that you are not alone. We are all navigating uncharted waters, trying to understand our place in a world that is changing faster than our capacity for understanding. If you subscribe to the channel, you will connect with a growing community of people who share your concerns and your desire for a deeper understanding of the philosophical challenges of our time. Each week, we meet here to explore together the great questions that define our era and to seek not just understanding, but also wiser ways to live amid the transformations we are witnessing. This is not just a channel, but a space for dialogue and collective growth where we can face together the most difficult questions of our existence. Join us on this continuous journey. Subscribe so we can continue this essential conversation about how to find human value and meaning in an age that questions our very necessity. The replacement revolution has already begun. The question is not whether it will happen, but how we will respond to it. And perhaps, just perhaps, our response to that question will be exactly what makes